Hey guys, just gonna give you a video about my current setup. Someone asked me to know what I do. Don't mind the clam. I just turn on the light so you guys can see better. It was on Nintendix. But I want to go over a quick view of everything that I use in my tank. Again, this is the 57 Rimless tank. For lighting, I use the A-can light here. It's 24 inches. I think it's called the 800. It has 7 different timers on there with the moonlight, and it has phase in, phase out, so it could go in and out, like a slowly in and slowly out of each phase. So it's more not like a quick flip like you're used to with some type of lighting that will just go quickly to the Nintendix, and just like a quick flash, it kind of guides in and glides out. The Powerhead I use here, it's a MP40. There's an MP10 that you can use, but in this tank I have a 1/2 inch glass, which it's challenging, but you could make an MP10 fit on this glass. It's more designed for a nano tank than MP10. The MP40 could go up to 3/4 of an inch on the glass or acrylic, depending on what tank you have. And I generally leave it on the reef mode, but I do dabble with the blue mode, which is your short wave mode. I am looking probably to get a second MP40, which is kind of overkill in this tank. I mean, this one MP40 is good enough to give nice flow for the tank, but I kind of like that wave back and forth motion. And even though this does have that short wave motion, it works a lot better with the wave motion when you have multiple MP equipment. And so that's what I'm doing, pretty much thinking about doing right now. Now, when it comes to controllers, I use the Apex controller right here, which is from Neptune Systems. As you can see here, my tank stays consistently at 78.5, 78. That's roughly where my range is. This is 8.34 right now. It goes to 8.2 roughly at night. So at night and in the morning, it's usually around 8.2. Now for skimmers, I use the Tons Master Dock skimmer. It actually has a very small footprint, and as you can see here, I have the some foam going on. But the Tons is supposed to be, I think it's the Master 4000, I believe, the Master Dock. It's the smallest out of all of them. It's rated for 220 gallons. And since the bio load I have in my tank, it's the better skimmer. You always want to have better skimmer rated. So the minimum you want to do, so if you have, let's say, a 55 gallon tank, you want to have something that does 120, 130, because you want to have double what the tank size is. So this is at 220, so it's the skimmer to handle the bio load, because again, I do have an overstock tank. But believe it or not, what I do is I contact the guys from Wet Web Media, and I guess the Bob Fenner, the head guy. They're very, very good at getting back to you very quickly. And I mentioned about my overstock tank and the selection I'd done, and believe it or not, he says that I have a nice tank. And the only suggestion was the fish is the Babonius probably would need a bigger tank, but again, this guy is very, very small. So and they're not much of a swimmer. They just usually hover in one area or hang by a rock. So he should be okay. And the Naoki wrasse, which is a pretty cool fish. In my tank, he actually flashes every time the antenna goes on. So it's a pretty cool sight to see him change his colors a little bit and his fin just out. But he won't get any bigger than what he is now. And so he's kind of happy in his tank, so I'm not too worried about him. He could be fine in the 30 to 50 gallon tank. The butterfly was the other fish that he said that I should have a bigger tank for. Again, he's been in a tank since he was small, so he kind of customized to this tank, but he hasn't really gotten any bigger than he has, which I can't find right now. He might be somewhere in his tank. The Rose Bubble 2 is doing very well. I recommend Rose Bubbles to be maybe 6 to 8 months after your tank has really established itself with the chemistry, because they will sometimes perish if you don't get them with a good, tank that's already settled in. Eventually you might see the butterfly swimming around. He's hiding right now on me, but he'll come out. Jawfish is doing good. So the sump I have, going back down here below, is the 20-gallon sump. It's a do-it-yourself type of sump that I've created. It has a baffle for the air bubbles. I do have a small area that have light rock. I used to have some Kato in there, or Cheeto, whatever how you pronounce it. You can see the light is on. I have a nano LED light there that turns opposite of the tank. So when my tank is under the 10x, or at night when it's under its moonlight, this turns on, and then vice versa. So this is what I have in my sump here, and you can see if you pay really close attention, I have baby ghost shrimp swimming around the tank, because I have them saltwater that's quite local, that actually live a long time in the saltwater than the freshwater ones that would die within a half hour, ghost shrimp wise, and they actually had babies. So it's a cool, maybe I could grow them up and then put them in the tank. So definitely have a lot of little ghost shrimp flying around in this sump here. I also use, to pull out more stuff out of the tank, I have a carbon reactor here. I asked about the phosphine, and they told me that's not a good thing to use in your tank. So sorry about the lighting, but the sun's going down in my area. I also have a UV sterilizer. It is the JBJ 9-watt sterilizer. I change the bulbs every 6 months. You can see the 2 heater lights I got going on there, 150-watt heaters on here. Well, I do apologize, 125-watt heaters in here. The reason why I got 2 instead of 1 is, if one fails, the other one's going to kick in. But the second is that the size is smaller and I can fit it in this sump. I have an Eheim return pump. I forgot the name of it, but it's the sump, the return pump that I use in my tank. I do have 2 bags of ChemiPro Elite that to keep the phosphates down. So if you want to change that every 3 months or so, that's what I have in there. And also, if you look straight down to this metal in the middle of this video here, there's a metal prong in there. That's actually a ground prong. So if something ever happens electronically in the water, it will ground the electric in the water, so you won't fry your fish. I definitely recommend it. It's very cheap. I think it's maybe 10 to 15 bucks, but every tank should have one, because something, you never know. This is a lot of electric. There's water. Something could always go wrong. Better safe than sorry. And it's only 15 bucks. Could save you a lot of money and grief later down the road. So that's what I have in the sump here. Do 5-gallon water changes. I have a filter socket behind this here. And that's pretty much it, what I have for the fish tank here. Again, I would say about 65 to 70 pounds worth of rock I have in this tank. And that's pretty much what I have rock-wise. I landscaped it. There's the butterfly, the marginal. I landscaped it where there's a lot of overhangs and current can flow between the rocks. The fish like to have a lot of rock work. They like to have the overhangs, or so they can hang underneath it, and it just makes them feel more comfortable, and it adds more flow, so they have some oxygen going in that direction. So here's my gumdrop coral crouching. He's moving to back his home there. You can see also here that one thing I find in my tank, it's harder to get the Coralline algae growing, which only I have is right there. That's pretty much most of it. A little purple on the rock, nothing too crazy, but I have sponge all over the place. I got actually this purple sponge right there. I got the yellow sponge right here. The yellow sponge is actually recovering from over here. Actually, I lost it when my pH dropped a little bit and fell apart a little bit, but it's growing back. And I got blue sponge all over the place. So that's one thing I'm happy about, that I have this sponge growing. And then I guess the angelfish or something's eating the sponge, but when it poops it out, I guess it attaches up to a new spot, and then I have sponge growing over there. And then over here I have some more purple sponge, and there's actually clear white sponge on top of there. So nice variety sponge wise. I can't with the bioload I have in my tank, you're not going to get SPS in here. SPS needs very, very clean water, good parameters, and Health Freaky is a new guy. I'll talk a little bit more about my update in the next video, but the water is, with all the fish I have, it's not going to be suitable, and I don't have the success what I do with the SPS, even though my calcium, alkalinity is in a decent shape. But LPS I seem to do fine, and my bubble tip anemone's been growing because I feed it. You're supposed to feed it like once or twice a week. I feed it every day with one piece of krill because I kind of wanted it to grow a little bigger than it was when I got it. So definitely grew some size. I got the 2 sexy shrimp and a porcelain crab hanging out there. They host it, and that's all I have in my tank here. So I hope this helps you guys out, that, you know, trying to get a nice setup. Again, you want to stick with your within your budget, but I would always suggest never really go cheap on some equipment. Lighting's very important with coral, so you want to spend good money on here. That's probably one of the most expensive pieces you're going to buy in your tank, is your lighting, your Powerhead, and everything else is kind of reasonable. Those two things cost a lot of money. These lights, you know, for the example, this one cost me $1,000, and the MP40, you know, brand new, goes for about $460, $465, or something like that. So they're right there alone. Those two things are $1,500. I am actually in the process of thinking about upgrading to a 125, but the cost is very expensive. So that's why I'm sticking with the one with the 57 that I have right now. Last thing also, for the stand, this is the the Deep Blue Professional stand. I would not recommend it. As you can see here, this thing rusted up pretty good from evaporation and salt getting on it, and there's no really ventilation. That's why it's like that. It's horrible, and it's press board, and I had bubbling all over the doors, and it's not the best thing in the world, because, you know, you're going to spill water. It's going to happen. Or this, you know, what happened was I had too much air going to my skimmer, so it overflowed and it was spilling off to the side over here, and it's just a horrible stand. I would not recommend it. Just go with wood if you could, or something that's not press board. So, alright guys, so I hope this helps you. If you're looking to set up a tank like mine, that's the type of equipment I have. Again, I didn't go cheap with some of the stuff, but then again, you know, it takes time. So I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know if you have any questions or any things that you guys like to see on a different video, and I'll create one for you guys. Alright, take care.